This right here is $10,000. And what if I told you that this money wasn't made here in London or in the US? This money was made in Africa, Uganda to be specific. Now, what am I trying to communicate here? What am I trying to say? The whole idea behind this channel is that there is money in Africa. Africa isn't just for charity or philanthropy or for aid. Africa is ripe with economic potential that, when seized, could make you a lot of money. So this video is for people who want to make money in Africa. And recently I made more than $10,000 in Africa, primarily focusing on real estate. And I had a moment of joy, but then I had a moment of dread because I realized something that a lot of Africans in the diaspora end up facing is that when you make money abroad as a at least UK citizen, you often have to pay tax on that money if it's in your name, which is why it's so important, and that's actually the point of the video, why it's so important to set up proper structures, proper legal structures like a limited company to protect your assets outside of the country, rather than treating foreign income as a side project that is all in your name, because that's kind of when things start getting expensive, especially as you start making more and more money. Because yes, you might make, say, $1, $10 here, and no one's really going to chase you for that, right? But if you start making large sums of money, this is when you start feeling the pain of, oh crap, I made this money in my name, now I've got to pay taxes. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a quick intro, and without further ado, let's get into the video. So today I want to talk about taxes. Taxes in Uganda as a British citizen. So as a British citizen, you're actually legally obligated to report all foreign income to HMRC. So this means that if you're making money outside in any country, you've got to pay taxes in the UK if the income is in your name. And that's the catch. It's only if the income is in your personal name. So that's why it's so important to really be diligent with how you structure income in other countries, right? So let's take, say, the project that I'm working on in Uganda. I made very clear at the start that I came onto this project primarily as an investor to help out my mom get this building to revenue generation. So the structure I've set up is, this is my mom's property. I'm merely an investor who has a vested interest in making sure that, my mom makes money from this property. And, my financial involvement in this is strictly as an investor. I am not receiving money from it. I don't spend money from this on personal things. This is strictly money for the property and for my mom, right? But in future, I plan to take this a step further. I plan to set up a company, right? Because in Uganda, or in the world in general, you can set up companies to limit your liability. So if, say, my mom has to pay taxes in the UK, if it's a company, she does not have to pay personal income tax on the income from this property, because the property is no longer owned by her, it's owned by the company. And the reason I want to use a company in future is because I plan to expand operations, God willing. I plan to do a lot more than just, say, a single building or just mainly just real estate. I plan to get into other ventures. And if we're doing other ventures and doing more than just real estate, when it's personal income, this can be very tricky because you're making money from many different places. At times, you may not even know how much you're making. So it makes it a lot harder to calculate. And especially if you're an employee, especially in my situation, I work in, financial services in the City of London. So I'm in a fairly costly tax bracket, if I may say. So personal income in my name is just a bad idea, which is why strictly the income that comes from Uganda, I don't put it in my name. It strictly has nothing to do with me. I'm strictly an investor. I'm strictly managing the whole situation. But that does not mean that it's as clear as not putting your name on the, not doing things in your personal name. You need to have extra stuff to protect you. As I said, like setting up a limited company. That is probably the next evolution that I plan to take. Setting up a limited company, setting up proper governance and control, setting up a proper legal structure, a legal framework. Just because, like, like many Africans in the diaspora, at times we tend to do things very casually, very personal, doing things in our personal name, but this doesn't tend to scale very well. It can lead us into legal snares and legal traps. So this is why I'm studying quite deeply international tax, tax in the UK, tax in Uganda, business, setting up businesses, understanding the various types of businesses, both in not just the UK but in Uganda as well, which makes things a lot more complex. But I think it's quite exciting. Ultimately, my main takeaway for this video for Africans in the diaspora is that we should stop thinking small, right? Stop thinking of things in our personal name. Let's think about setting proper businesses with registered entities, registered shareholders, registered directors, and doing things the legit way. Not necessarily just because it'll keep us out of trouble, but also because it makes our ventures back home a lot more scalable. It makes them a lot more protected from a legal standpoint. When you think about inheritance, what will your kids inherit? Will they inherit your assets? How will they inherit it? Who are the shareholders? Who has the majority control? Who will be the main person who will take over and can make executive decisions? So these are the kind of things that Africans in the diaspora need to think about, because a lot of the time these decisions are very, very casual, which can lead to some trouble. So this is just some thoughts I had before I go to sleep. I'm actually tired. I've been thinking about making this video the whole day, but because it's about tax and money and all that kind of stuff, I was kind of like hesitant to make it. But anyways, I hope you liked it. Stay blessed, invest in Africa, more blessings, more life.